Good evening, Cheese Room, and welcome to our normal Wednesday night ramble show with me today hosting again, Craig, and I am joined by a fantastic panel of guests for this conversation tonight. I'll start, as I always do when we do these, with the debutante. We have got in my top right, Harry from Scarfy Spurs Talks. He's been a bit of a sensation on social media, I think it's fair to say. A great lad, someone I've followed on Twitter for a while. I've had the pleasure of being on Harry's show as well, not too long ago. He's not invited me back on though. I'm not sure why, but he is a great lad. He's taken the social media by storm and everything else. Harry, tell everyone in the Cheese Room a little bit about yourself and welcome.
Yeah, firstly, thank you very much for having me. Don't worry, I haven't forgot to invite you on. No reason for that. I'll definitely get back to you. Don't worry. No, you've done a good job. Yeah, I'm Harry. Like I said, thank you for having me on. Got a Twitter handle there, HarryScarf22. Basically, content creator, YouTuber, fairly new writer for Valve as well with my own channel. Scarfy Spurs. So the support has been amazing. It's really blown up in 2023 to the point, for example, in April, let's say, I had 200 subscribers, now close to 1,500. That's a big jump in such a short space of time. So I'm very grateful for the support I've received, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening with a great bunch of guests.
Yeah, and it is great to have you here in the Cheese Room, Harry, and look forward to getting into the conversation with you tonight. And then going to my bottom right, first time on the show with me, but he has been on the show in recent weeks. Craig, a fellow Craig. It's a great name, Craig.
Fantastic name, isn't it?
Good week.
Yeah, thanks ever so much for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to do a midweek show. I think it was a Friday show that I did as my debut. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Great conversation, as it always is when we talk Spurs. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity to come back.
Excellent. And of course, can't forget Stuart. Stuart, welcome back. How's things been with you?
Yeah, all good. Obviously, only a couple of days on since I was on Monday, but I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that we can talk about, as always, with our beloved Tottenham. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, there is plenty to be talking about. And it's interesting you use the word beloved Tottenham, because it feels to me like we really have got our Tottenham back. I think there's been a momentum being built around Ange Postecoglou. And it feels like, to use the old analogy, you know, everyone's on the Ange train, aren't they? And I think there's been a real swelling of support towards Ange, which is sort of accumulated in the stadium on Saturday. Craig, you was at the stadium on Saturday. What was it like in terms of the general chit-chat and support around Ange and what he's doing with the club?
It was incredible, to be honest. I was in the West Stand with my daughter, because that's where our new season tickets are. But my father and one of my close mates, I managed to get tickets, and they sat in the South Stand. And my dad came out, and I think his ears are still ringing now, and we're on Wednesday evening, that it was that loud. The atmosphere was the best I've ever heard. Now, I wasn't at the North London derby in May 2022, and I understand it was phenomenal then. But yeah, Saturday was just incredible. From the first minute to the 90th or 96th, whatever it was, minute, it was constant. Pre-match on the concourse, there was singing. There was a Dele Alli chant as well, because people had got wind that he was in the stadium. So the atmosphere was absolutely rocking, from kind of arriving on the Tottenham High Road, in the pubs, and then in and through the stadium and during the match. It was great.
Yeah. Stuart, you was at the North London derby, wasn't you? Last
time? Yeah, I did both games. I would probably say for a consistent experience, the game on Saturday was probably better, because there was still a lot of nerves around that game that night against Arsenal. But the atmosphere on Saturday was absolutely stunning. Like I said, I've said to a lot of people, it was mind blowing how good it was. It was to have that sort of volume consistently through the game is exactly what that stadium has to be like. It was like that a lot at White Hart Lane, and it helped us win a lot of games. And it's been there on occasion. with the new stadium, but I think that's obviously been hurt by whoever we've got in, the football that's being played and all the other stuff that's been going on behind the scenes. So I think now that we've got a sort of a more positive situation going on, and ultimately it's Ange and the players and their sort of performances that are going to keep that going. So hopefully against a much smaller, no disrespect to them, much smaller sort of side in Sheffield United, we have to keep the atmosphere as strong as it was in that Man United game, because I think that is going to get us over the line in a lot of games.
Mm. How much of that atmosphere do you put down to the trumpet before the game, obviously, to start us off with the traditional song, and then with the drum as well? I mean, I must admit I wasn't at the game on Saturday, but I watched it on TV. I didn't really hear the drum on TV, but I understand it was quite profound in the stadium. Did that impact positively?
Yeah, I think all these little tweaks that they've made to the pre-kickoff stuff and building up the atmosphere with the trumpet, and then obviously everyone starts, getting into the song as the players are getting ready to kick off. And then, to be honest, I was sat in the East Stand, sort of relatively close to the South Stand, and because it was so loud, I couldn't actually hear the actual drum. But you obviously know that it's happening because it's effectively leading the chants. So it's doing the job that it's meant to be doing. And if that then enables the ground to get that loud, then that's absolutely amazing. So, the pre-game stuff was fantastic. And then the song choices and stuff after the game and after we'd won and all that kind of stuff, it was just like a party atmosphere after the game. It was absolutely nuts, because normally I'll try and dash down and get to like the Shelf Bar or something like that. But I was just there sort of dancing around and having a good time for a bit before I went back down to get my neck oil. So no, it was fantastic. It's just us doing that consistently now.
Yeah. Harry, I think a lot of credit needs to go to certain social media accounts, Tottenham accounts, such as Return of the Shelf, Spurs Flags is another one I can think on the top of my head. I think all of these fan-coordinated efforts, I think particularly the Return of the Shelf, which has now got that group of people singing consistently or starting the chants in there. Is this part of that thing about the fans buying back into the club and feeling that they're directly involved in the atmosphere, in terms of, it was the fans, I understand, that were behind the return of the trumpet, it was the fans that have done the return of the shelf, it's the fans that do the typhoon at the beginning of the game today. How important is that to what's happening at Spurs again this season?
Oh, it's really important, because if we want to do well this season under Ange, and we want to achieve big things, we need that 12-man, in matches. That proved against Manchester United, Northern Ireland derby last year, where Arsenal pretty much crumbled. The 12-man was a big part in that. So credit to the likes of Spurs song sheet, THFC Flags, Return of the Shelf, who, like you say, all fans trying to improve the atmosphere. They put a lot of time, effort, dedication into improving the atmosphere. Whether it's bringing the trumpet back, the drum, coming up with song ideas, different designs of flags. You could see from someone who's just watching it on TV, on Saturday, the big difference, and the noise throughout was incredible. On TV as well, louder than over the commentators. Commentators are having to drop; they're having to speak louder. They're having to play with the audio, and we need to keep this up. This is really, really important. Like you say, going into the Sheffield United game, we can't just do it in big games. As important as it is and as good as it is, you need to keep it up, because every game's important. We want to win every game, or as many as we can. So that 12-man is essential. So great start, first home game, great atmosphere. So we've just got to keep it up. So credit to everyone involved in it, improving the atmosphere.
Yeah. I mean, I love my seat in the North Stand upper. I know Stuart likes his seat as well in the North Stand, but I am tempted to try and move to the Return of the Shelf section. I'm looking over quite envious into what's potentially going on over there, and I'm thinking I want a piece of that. But I won't move just yet. In terms of Craig, I want to just, bring you to Ange a little bit. Obviously, those that listen to the Chief Room know that I was a big advocate for Ange well early on into the search for our new manager. Have you been surprised by how well Ange has settled into Tottenham Hotspur and how much he's been accepted by the Spurs faithful so quickly?
In short, no. And the reason I say that is because he's had this effect every single place he's been. So the logic would suggest that it would also work at Spurs. And I think the chances of it working at Spurs have been even greater because the disconnect we've had as a fan base with the club has been an ever increasing void over the last kind of 4 years. So the minute you recruit someone who is an authentic leader, who encapsulates trust, honesty, and integrity, and I get a sense he's proud to be at Spurs, then it's natural that the fans are going to align themselves to a leader like that. You know, in business, I work in with leaders all the time, and it's looking at their personality traits and why you want to buy into them. I'm sure all of us, Harry, maybe not quite yourself at the moment because you're an awful lot younger than I am. But I've worked with some incredibly inspirational leaders, and I've also worked with people who lead organizations who you just disengage from really, really quickly. And I think we've got the former in Ange. I think what he's developed is an extremely positive culture. You know, we've just lost arguably one of the best players that's ever played for the club, but you wouldn't necessarily notice. Ange hasn't created a culture where, you know, Harry Kane's left and all of a sudden he needs to feel sorry for himself. He's kind of like, well, just progressing without him. It's not an issue. Whereas I'd imagine if this were 12 months ago under a different manager, I think the start of the season may have been a very different experience to the one that Stuart and I experienced at the stadium on Saturday. So I think we've got an awful lot to thank Ange for. I think most of us are on a continuum of how much we blame Levy and Enic for the position we're in. But one thing we must do is give credit where it's due. And recruiting Ange right now, I think, is an extremely well-advised appointment.
Yeah. Stuart, could Ange be the next Postecoglou in terms of length of tenure?
Could Ange be what? Sorry.
The next Ange be the next Pochettino in terms of length of tenure?
Well, he's got a good start because we've actually given him a decent length contract, which I was when that sort of got announced, because I know there was a lot of talk pre-announcement that it was going to only be like a couple of years or something like that. So the fact he's got a 4-year deal off the bat shows the confidence that the board have got in him, and it also then gives him the confidence that he can actually spend time in developing the club into what he wants it to be. So if all goes well, which we hope it will, then yeah, I don't see why he can't be at the club, you know, for that period of time, if not beyond. And I think what the great thing is about Postecoglou is that I think he will create a culture and a setup that if and when he does actually leave, it can almost just be passed down to either one of the other coaches in his team or someone else who comes in. And that's what I think we absolutely need to do now as a club, is that we need to find a way of, this is the culture, this is the way of playing, this is what we want to do, this is the profile of player. And it doesn't matter who the manager is that comes in, that's what it is. That's what Barcelona have done for a long time. That's why you see a lot of ex-pros become managers and all that kind of stuff in there. Same with sort of the likes of Real Madrid sometimes. So that's what I think we need to do for the longer term. But for now, yeah, I you know, unless something catastrophic happens, touch wood, that's not going to happen. But yeah, I can't see him going anywhere because the amount of positive change he's made in 2 months is absolutely bonkers, absolutely insane.
Just to jump in there, I think you're absolutely right, mate. Where what we hope for as a fan base is that club actually succession plans correctly and appropriately, rather than just a scattergun approach of going from Pochettino to Mourinho to Nuno to Conte. There's absolutely no succession planning there whatsoever. And I think you're right. With someone like Ange, if he can create that culture where you've got a team of coaches working alongside him and he can facilitate their growth, you know, and at the point where he exits, because at some point he will do, hopefully that's his own decision and he's not pushed out because he's been successful, that we've then got our next generation of leaders coming through the club that he's helped develop. And that's what I really hope to see from this appointment.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Harry, in terms of you, are you where are you in terms of Ange Postecoglou now? Are you fully behind him? Are you fully on the Ange train?
Absolutely, no, I'm fully behind him. I'm fully behind any manager, comes to Tottenham Hotspur, whether I like them or not, because it is our club. Same with any player, whether I agree with the transfer or not. I support them. While they're wearing the shirt. Personally, wasn't sure about the appointment when he was appointed. Because of other managers that we were linked to, the likes of Nagelsmann, who I preferably wanted at the time. But as time's gone on, it looks like an amazing appointment, as Craig alluded to, by the club. And you've got to give credit where credit's due. Also, the longer contract looks like Levy's recognised that he's going to need to give him patience, going to need to give him time. And I'm glad, like Stuart, you've mentioned it, that the good thing is when Postecoglou leaves, we know it will pretty much be in a good place. Whereas I felt the likes of Mourinho and Conte, it was left in pretty much a mess. And that causes problems down the line, as such as now with the system and players not shifting. It kind of stays for a long while. I'm fully behind him. In fact, he knows obviously turn the fans really, really quickly. That's credit to him. I thought he would do that based on exactly the same thing happened at Celtic and pretty much everywhere he's been. So time will tell, obviously, if it's the right appointment. But right now, it really does look like the right appointment. We've got to a good start because 4 points out of our 2 games, considering, the pre-season that we had, a new manager, new system. To adapt that quickly and beat the likes of Man United and compete with Brentford that early on is impressive. Obviously, we've got to keep it up. I like the way he comes across to the media, he handles himself, the way he's handled the Harry Kane situation. He's put the club before the individual. He hasn't sulked. He's got on with it. It's probably, if anything, made him stronger. Whereas the likes of Conte kept banging on about how Kane's irreplaceable, basically how it'd be the end of the world if he left. So it's a completely different approach. I like the way Ange's approached it. Definitely on the Ange train. So really looking forward to this season.
Yeah, definitely. Overall, I think we're all on the Ange train, aren't we? In terms of the development of the team, Craig, so quickly, were you going into that United game on Saturday expecting us to win or expecting the performance that you were, or where was you at going into the stadium?
No, in a word, I wasn't expecting us to win the match. I thought we may struggle. I thought that the fact Erik ten Hag has been there for a season now, had won a trophy this first season, got them into top 4, I thought it was going to be an incredibly challenging game. They've obviously made some player acquisitions as well. I was actually really surprised at how poor United were. Yes, they had some attacking phases of play in the first half. They had a couple of really good chances, but in the second half, they were, woeful, frankly. I thought Spurs played better than I expected, but I do think that the fans helped to that. I think the fans, the atmosphere that was created, gave the players confidence to really go for it. So did I expect Spurs to play as well as they did? No, I didn't expect to win. I've got to be honest, I'd have been very happy with the draw going into the game. I just desperately didn't want to lose at home in the first game, but I would have been happy with the draw. And I was absolutely delighted with 3 points and the way they came about.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Stuart, when it comes to where we are as a team at the moment, are you getting as carried away as I'm getting carried away? I mean, I'm already thinking, like, what's going to happen at the end of the season? I'm thinking top 4, FA Cup, it's in the bag.
Probably not that carried away just yet because, we've been here, but, I'm a long hardened Tottenham fan, I've learned not to get too excited too soon. But I think there is a lot of positives. I think, we're going to come on to it in a little bit tonight. I think the shape of the squad by the end of the transfer window, I don't see it sort of. I'm not in the same group as some people on social media where, if X doesn't happen, it's an absolute calamity and the season's going to collapse and all this sort of stuff. Because Ange is one of those coaches that will adapt to whatever situation he's left in, which is another fantastic trait that he's got. But there is a lot to be positive about. There's nothing to say that we can't go and try and do a cup double or a cup double and top 4. That's the sort of stuff we should be aiming for anyway. And again,
imagine that.
From what I've heard from Anne, he just he doesn't set goals. because he doesn't want to limit what the vision of the team is. So maybe we should be the same. That's the thing. Don't limit what the team can potentially achieve. So, yeah.
I'm with this guy. How can we not get it carried away? We've got.
I'm 100% getting. I'm
not letting anyone burst my bubble right now. I am on this. I'm in this cloud. I'm over the moon. I'm ecstatic. I'm fully COYS. We're going to win it all. We're going to clean up, aren't we, Harry? You're with me, aren't you, Harry?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, we're going to do really, really well. Mind you, I go into most seasons with lots of optimism, but this just feels different. We've definitely, I love that. Definitely I've got a club back. We're playing the way. It's nice to be able to enjoy watching our football club again and have a manager that actually wants to be here instead of feeling like we're doing him. He's doing us a favour. So it's nice someone who's here that wants to be here. I'm really looking forward to this season. I like that Ange, doesn't, set out goals, certainly not publicly to the media anyway, because like you said, limiting the ambitions, that is good because, having a long contract, the aim will be eventually to close the gap to the teams like Arsenal, Man City. So I think it'll be done gradually this year. If we get into the top four, boy, I'll be happy because that fifth place could potentially be, top four, Champions League football. So that is a good thing for us. And gradually, the aim will be stronger. So just top four this season is enough to satisfy me. But why can't we go bigger than that? The signs we've seen early on against Brentford, so many people chucked in for their debut. Van der Ven only had 2 or 3 training sessions, but was excellent against Brentford. The whole team was excellent. So if you watch any manager under a new system, Ten Hag, for example, last season with Man United, they weren't in this position. They lost their first 3 games, got battered by Brentford, turned over by Brighton at Old Trafford. So I think we have a lot to look forward to. However, it's more the smaller games away from home that I worry about. I want to see if the mentality's changed. When you're going to Carabao Cup round 2, a cold night in Fulham and Stoke, etc., and you're coming away with 3 points to the win. I want to see, if that mentality has changed. And obviously, before the international break, we've got the likes of Bournemouth, Sheffield United. So that'll be the real test, Fulham as well in the Cup. Because you've got to look forward to domestic competitions this year because I'm confident that Ange will treat them seriously, put out the first team, and we do very, very well. Because it's nothing worse than when we put out the second team last year and lost to the likes of Middlesbrough, Sheffield United. It's embarrassing. So, we have a lot to look forward to this season. Why can't we get carried away?
No, well, I think we absolutely should get carried away. Just as a side note, did any of you guys catch the Spurs behind the scenes uncut footage of the game? Did you see their 12 minutes? Did you see that? Yeah. I've got to say, if you haven't watched it, go onto their YouTube channel and find it. It's about 12 minutes long. It's Netflix quality production work. It is phenomenal. I don't know who's behind their social media stuff, but you can almost see it being cut together as an overall end of season video montage of the season. It's such high quality work, and in terms of, it's probably helped build my excitement up, to be honest, over the weeks. I've watched that about 15 times. It is a phenomenal piece, honestly. Craig, you're in your hotel room later on, mate. Honestly, get on the YouTube and watch it. It'll be the best 12 minutes you'll ever have. It's really good. And anyone listening as well, do grab that. Let's go and let's just quickly talk. One question, Craig, for you then, before we move on. When's the last time, as a Spurs fan, you can remember being excited about the next game? Like, I am excited about Saturday or next week. I can't wait. What's the last point in your time? I had a conversation with someone at work today about this, and I know when it was in my mind. When was it for you?
Yeah, no, exactly when it was. It was the morning of the Champions League final. I got up exceptionally early, went and took my dog for a walk on the beach. I had a playlist that I'd set up with my young daughter, Reef, on Spotify for the Champions League final. And I listened to it whilst walking Rolf on the beach. And I felt, that tingling sensation of, oh my God, Spurs are in the Champions League final this evening. And I just couldn't wait. I was like a cat on a hot tin roof the whole day. Living up where we do in Merseyside was a bit of a challenge with so many Scousers and Liverpool fans. So Reef, myself, Kirsten and Darcy, my eldest, we went into Liverpool that afternoon. We tied our scarves to the car, drove into Liverpool 1, walked around Liverpool 1 in our Spurs shirts, And then got back to the house for the match. That was genuinely the last time I really looked forward to it, because that summer after, there were so many rumours about what was going to happen with Pochettino. I kind of went into the season feeling a bit flat. I guess like the team did, like potentially Poch did. Then Poch gets sacked and we brought Mourinho in. And, to be honest, of course I support Tottenham and of course I've been going to Tottenham, but I haven't looked forward to a match until Saturday. So I honestly think it's been 4 years in waiting.
Right. Stuart, what about for you?
I think the biggest one that comes to mind will be the North London derby last season. Was it last season? I can't even bloody remember now. No, the season before. Where, obviously we won 3-0 because obviously it was such a big match. We had to win it and all that kind of stuff. The atmosphere was incredible. And we are actually sort of in a really good sort of run of form and performance and all that kind of stuff. So, and then, after that, it just all, last season was a bit of a disaster. So it's definitely been a while going into this season. And now, that's what it is now. It's a little bit ironic in the fact that we've got less football to watch this season because we're not in Europe, but we're all sort of clamouring to watch Tottenham more. So it's a little bit painful in that sense. But hopefully we every game we'll continue to have that feeling because we're performing so well. And going back to sort of Harry's point briefly, I think this is the test. We got a good away draw against Brentford on the first day, and especially sort of dealing with the fact that Romero sort of left the game quite early and dealing with all of that, and then to have another away game against Bournemouth, which is a team that historically we have sort of had issues with at times. If we can get a good positive result there and performance, then that's the sort of point where you're like, okay, because away we've normally been struggling we've struggled a long time as Spurs fans away. So if we can get to a point where we can actually deal with teams away from home, then that's going to be the sign of real sort of change by Ange, I think.
For me, it was the last home season at White Hart Lane, the old White Hart Lane, the undefeated season. That's when I remember going into that season, waiting every week, next week. When's the next game? Particularly those home games, because it just felt like we were unbeatable that year. We were defeated at home, wasn't we? Phenomenal season. So to have that feeling again, even after the game, since the game finished on Saturday night, it's like straight away 7 days. 7 days. It feels like a long time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they changed that fixture so we've got a Monday night and a Friday night game because they don't want to make us wait too long.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they've looked after our mental health. That's what they're doing. Well done, Premier League. Well done, Sky. Yeah, great. Ridiculous. All right, let's move on then. Let's talk about the squad composition as a whole. We'll start with the current rumours of incoming before we talk about the outgoing. The latest one today is Brennan Johnson, £50 million purchase from Forest. Harry, is that good use of 50 million quid?
For me personally, no. I'd take Brennan Johnson, but if we can get struck a deal, I wouldn't put it past Daniel Levy because he's just a very good businessman and great at coming up with deals like this, especially towards the end of the window. But where we give, because Nottingham Forest will be looking for a couple of players, probably to strengthen their defence. They're in for potentially a long season. The second season syndrome, they want to prevent that. So if we consider, I don't know, Dier, Tanganga, Lloris, I don't know, try and put a few players in the deal and get money off it where we end up giving back 20-25 million for Brendan Johnson or 2 or 3 players, then absolutely. But 50 million, I mean, I know prices are high in this current market, but I think we can go elsewhere than Brendan Johnson. Percy Gift-Orban, I think will be the cheaper option and the better, perhaps, long-term option. But who knows? Who am I to speak? It's down to Ange, the club. At the end of the day, if Ange wants him, I want him, and that's all that matters is what the manager wants. Personally, think we could better use some money, but there's rumours coming out that Forest could want a couple of players from Spurs in return, I'm all for that. Send 7 or 8 out and then we end up paying nothing. That kind of works because we need to get players out the door. No, not a good investment for me.
Interesting. Stuart, I think we've got a similar view on this. If it's a player that Ange wants, we sign him. If you don't want it, it's as simple as that, really. But where are you at with the Gift Orban, Brennan Johnson debate? Where would you go?
I think the first point you need to make is that they're not. We can't be saying is it going to be Gift Orban or Brennan Johnson because they're not the same player. Brennan Johnson will be coming in as effectively as a challenger to Kulusevski, as far as I'm concerned. He's not coming in as an alternative to Gift Orban. I think it will be Gift Orban as a striker, and potentially other. I know we've been rumoured with Jimenez from Feyenoord as well. So I think that's is it him, Orban, or someone else from a striker perspective? Because the talk has always been that a lot of the, people like sort of Romero and all that sort of stuff are saying that, it's going to be a centre-back, a winger and a striker. That's the 3 players that he wants to bring in during the rest of the window if we can sell people. So Brennan Johnson as being that winger signing, I think, look, we can't get the fee because if you're buying anyone within the Premier League, if people like Arsenal were paying 105 million for Rice and Chelsea are paying 115 million for Casido, everyone else's prices go up. That's just going to happen. So we can't argue about that. That you just got to take, a player who was 15, 20 million is now going to be 50 million because of that particular situation. So that for me isn't a concern. If we can then put players into the deal, like Harry said, I think Reguilon's being linked, even Sanchez, which I think is a massive risk if we don't get another centre-back in. If we can do that to chip the actual final fee that we're paying down, then fantastic. I think that's good. And I think we also have to take into account of which, especially people like him, do they get classified as non-homegrown or not? Because that's a massive issue we have within the squad. So if he's classified as homegrown in whatever criteria, then that would be another reason that he's getting looked at as well, not just his particular attributes that Ange has looked at. And I'm not being funny, the way they're scouting now, and they're doing it all very data-led scouting, and it's Ange and his team, don't challenge what he's doing because he knows what he's doing. He's proven it year after year after year, club after club after club. We might not agree with it from an outside perspective, but I trust every single player that if he wants him, I'll back it 100%.
And Andrew's made it clear, hasn't he, in many press conferences now over the last few weeks that he has a final say. He is making the decisions about who comes in and who comes out of this football club. He's not being driven by any agenda set by Levy or anyone else for that matter. We need to support him. Craig, on social media, we've had the typical yo-yo of, on one hand, we're not willing to spend 30 million on Gift Orban. Levy's tight, he just needs to pay up, etc. And on the other hand, it's why are we spending 50 million on Brennan? It's too much money. What a waste of money. We can't win as a club, can we? Really, we either don't show the ambition, or we're too ambitious and we're wasting money.
Yeah, I mean, we're a fickle fan base. I think most clubs have got fickle fans, and we certainly have our fair share. When it comes to valuation of players, I think it's impossible for us fans to truly value a player. I kind of agree with everything that's been said. If Ange wants a player through the door and the club are willing to pay the price that player, who am I to say that's too expensive? When it comes to Gift Orban, you know what? I haven't watched him play. I've watched a few clips on social. I've read a bit about him, and I've listened to a lot of YouTubers talk about him who've got far more knowledge than I have, who've looked at the data, and he appears to be quite an exception. So if the opportunity exists for us to sign him, if Ange believes he's going to be a valuable acquisition for the club and is going to benefit the team, then kind of let's go and get him. But the club have got to value him at a certain level. I'm not someone that really criticises what the club spend or don't spend. We're not privy to the finances. I think we spent an awful lot of money over the last 4 or 5 years, but I think we spent it pretty appallingly. in a number of circumstances. So my view is, if we carry on the spend rate that we've done, but our player acquisition is way better because our talent ID is vastly improved, you know what, we're then in a good space, aren't we? Because we're spending at a relatively appropriate level to get to top 4 or 5, and hopefully we'll start to spend more. But it's about where it's spent for me that's the priority.
Yeah.
Where would you want it spent, Craig? What's your priority positions?
Centre back. I think we do need another centre back. Eric Dier isn't going to get a look in under Ange. He hasn't got the recovery pace to be able to be even a squad player. Sanchez has surprised me. We all knew he was quick. The risk with Sanchez is his concentration level, but I have to say, when he came on for Romero against Brentford, I thought he played particularly well. So I consider that he could be potential backup. I would rather keep him in the squad than Dier. And I don't dislike Dier. I think Dier's a great guy, but he certainly doesn't suit this system. But I would like to see another centre-back come in. Who that is, I don't know. But it's for me, it can't be Longley. And it's not because Longley isn't a good player, but he doesn't suit that system. He hasn't got the speed to recover the way that we'll need to, pressing so high up the pitch. So definitely a centre-back. I do think we need somebody to challenge Richarlison in that number 9 position. Potentially that could be Sonny coming in from the left and playing through the middle, but I would like to see a striker signed. I've got a little bit of a concern about number 6, not because of who's currently playing there in Bissouma, because I think he's playing out of his skin, but I've got concerns come January when the African Cup of Nations comes round, and if we're still doing well, we're going to lose potentially Sarr and Bissouma. So I think we do need a strong backup in 6. So I'd go centre-back, striker, and kind of a holding number 6 would be the 3 areas that I'd like to see us focus on.
Yeah, so you don't see a role there for Skippy. You don't have faith in Skippy, or not faith, but Skippy and Hojbjerg. You wouldn't see them as being able to step in for that period.
Possibly, but I think Hojbjerg is probably going to go. If he doesn't, then, great as a squad player. Skipp, I really like. So Skipp of 2 years ago, I thought was going to be a mainstay in the Tottenham team. I really did. Yeah. But, unfortunately for him, he's had a couple of quite serious injuries. One was it kept him out for a long time, a lot longer than Conte thought. And then he had that innocuous training ground incident with his foot that become infected. And I don't think he's quite got back to where he was 2 years ago. So I do have a concern that we're not in a phase of our growth under Ange to be able to try and help him. My view with Skipp would be send him out on a season loan with another Premier League team, get him some game time because he's good enough. Get him some game time and then potentially transition him back into the squad next summer. But I don't think we can offer Skipp what he needs, and that's regular game time to get match sharp again, because he's not, in my opinion, he's not match sharp because he hasn't played enough.
Yeah. Well, and Kevin in the chat made this point. Can't Benny play at 6? He'll be back.
This is the thing that I almost forget about on a daily basis, and then go, oh yeah, Bentancur's coming back.
Yeah, and one of our best players.
Gets me really bloody excited because I mean, you stick him in, and that solves a lot of these problems. I agree with Craig. I think there is a little bit of a worry later in the year when the African Cup of Nations is on, and we've got the Asian Cup as well.
Yeah.
So we are going to lose Sonny as well if he's called up, which he obviously will be. I think that's why we're going for some of the players that we're going for. And I think if once Bentancur's back in the team, I think that does help us a bit, because then that, you could either keep Bissouma doing what he's doing and have Bentancur a little bit more advanced, or vice versa. But it does give you other options. But I think Sarr, we have to keep him in the team. We have to keep him in around the first team, give him in minutes where you can get them. Skipp, I think he has regressed, unfortunately, because of his injuries. And unfortunately, if you're a top Premier League team, or you have the ambitions to be one, you can't wait for the players. The players have to either step up, or unfortunately you get left behind behind the players that are in ahead of you. So, I would like to see Skipp sort of improve, but I've got a worrying feeling that he might have missed the boat now. I think that could be his long-term career might be impacted at Tottenham now.
Yeah, interesting. Harry, is Bissouma, Sarr, and Maddison probably the best midfield three in the country?
I think so, and I think they proved that against Brentford and Man United. We've gone from probably, in my opinion, having the best three in Europe in Kulusevski, Son, and Kane for majority of the last 2 seasons under Conte and both Mourinho, to having the best three in midfield. The positives is last season I thought defence and midfield was definitely our weakest link, and we've improved dramatically in the midfield. Bissouma and Sarr, Conte has as options, but choose not to use them. And obviously bringing Maddison in, a great bit of recruitment. That wasn't drastically improved our defence. I don't think that's going to be a massive issue compared to last season. We've got a good partnership with Romero and Van der Ven. But yeah, that midfield is very, very important. Where I want to see us work towards the end of the window, I want us to focus ideally on outgoings, because we've got a squad of 39. That's big. It's good for Ange to have loads of options, but you don't want people being upset and not getting the game time and causing problems in the dressing room, because it can be as simple as that. And it obviously brings money in, but I think we need a backup centre-back if we're going to go for anyone. We're one injury away from it potentially falling apart. I'd keep Sanchez as a backup as well. You've got Phillips, who's currently, I think, in the under 23. So it's only really Sanchez and Dier as backup, and Dier could be one of the ones to make way. So I do think we need a backup centre-back. But this has been really ambitious. But for me, you've got to be looking to move 6 or 7, maybe more players on. There's quite a few, I think, that need to be moved on. We've got a huge squad. But again, it's down to Ange. But I can't see them, Ndombele, Lloris, Dier or Skipp getting, at all in the matchday squad anytime soon, let alone get on the pitch. So for them, especially Skipp, their own career, if he wants to do something with his career now, he's got to move away, like the guys have discussed, which is sad in a way, because at times last season under Mourinho and Conte, under Nuno as well, I thought Skippy's a future captain. Mourinho, I think, was one of the ones who spoke about that. Could be really involved in the team. Hasn't worked out, injuries, different systems, but I just don't think, like Craig says, we can give him what he wants, and that is first team football. So I think a move to a smaller Premier League club, maybe like a loan with an obligation to buy, could really work for him. But the company to get on with outgoings, because everything you hear is that we won't bring players in until we've got players out the door, and we're running out of time. Less than a week left. You don't want to be left on deadline day with a squad of 40, 41 and not knowing what to do. So I think we've got to prioritise outgoings. But in terms of, like you said, the midfield, it is very, very strong. But like Craig says, the African Cup of Nations, Bissouma and Sarr go. Maddison currently injured. Bentancur out to what looks like Christmas, maybe New Year. Potentially we need another. I think we need another midfielder if Hojbjerg goes, but otherwise not. But at the same time, get 40 million for Hojbjerg, we should cash in because he doesn't really suit the system. Our midfield is very, very strong at the moment, and I'm just find a winning combination at the moment.
Mm. Harry, you brought us on nicely to the outgoings. I mean, you referenced there the squad is how many players in the squad did you say, Harry?
39, and that's not
39.
including Velez.
Yeah, okay. So realistically, we're probably looking, with no European football, of a squad of 25, 26 max. There's a lot of people going out there. You mentioned, Harry, the club need to get on with outgoings. Stuart, what do you think is going on with these outgoings? Why are these players not moving on?
I think the biggest issue is wages and their desire to go to a club where they're going to have to be on less wages. We're in an unfortunate situation that you can't force people. We'll get to that point. Players who don't want to go or under contract don't have to go. So unless they get a deal that's going to appeal to them, whether that's the team or the league or whatever, they're just going to sit on their contracts. And I was literally just, while Harry was talking, just looking at the current situation with our contracts and the amount of players that we've got sort of out of contract within the next sort of 2 years up to the end of June 2025. And most of the players that we're being linked with going are within either leaving next year or the year after. So the club will not be able to get a lot of money for them. And it's the wages. No other league around Europe can pay anywhere close to the Premier League. So you're not talking 10% drops. You're talking probably 50% drops for a lot of these guys, especially people like Ndombele, who's on a massively overpaid wage anyway. He's not going to go to France and take, under 100 grand, which is probably what's going to end up happening if he went there. He'll just sit on his contract. Or, we were talking about this on Monday night. I think that there will be a point internally in the club where they will go, right, once we reach this point, we have to start looking at negotiating buyouts, because we just need players out the door, because you can't have them just sat there not registered, because that's absolutely ridiculous to have. And we're not talking one or two. You're talking potentially 9, 10 players that will not be able to be registered. So I think it's going to be pretty frantic over the next 10 days now. Because what are we on? We're not even on bloody 10 days now. We're on almost a week. Just over a week. So it's going to go nuts. I think it's going to be exciting for transfer deadline day. I think that's going to be eventful. So tune in, choosing fans, because I think we're going to be it's going to be pretty mental that day. I think. But yeah, I mean, I said it on Monday. It's there's not. It's a massive indictment of the last 4 or 5 years of the club, especially in the recruitment and managing the squad, because it's an absolute farce how badly we've let this get and how badly we've let this run, where the squad's become unmanageable in terms of just the amount of players you've got that you've got to either loan, which we're limited on because we found that out last summer, or January, whenever it bloody was, whenever that ridiculousness happened. Or you've got Ange wants a very trim squad so he can keep them all motivated, and I think that's the biggest thing. And the one thing I am sort of less concerned about is Ange will not give two shits about just going, you're not getting registered, see you later. Go and train at home or whatever. You will not be in this structure, because this guy is so focused on winning that he will not let anything disrupt it. So, that's the good thing we've got. He won't mess about if we get into this scenario where we've got lots of players. But we're not the only club that's struggling with this at all.
Yeah,
it's the market, isn't it, at the moment? As you identified, Europe can't afford anything like the Premier League can afford, and that's been the case for a season or two. So any club that are trying to exit their players out of the Premier League is having an absolute nightmare. The only club that are bucking that trend a little bit are Chelsea and their links with Saudi Arabia. They've managed to offload a number for good value. Now, if you take some of our players as an example, Lloris and Eric Dier, that are coming into the final year of their contract, if you look at it from their perspective, Lloris has potentially turned down a move to Napoli, hasn't he? From what I've read, it's because he's not guaranteed first-team football. So, from his perspective, he could up sticks, move his family to Naples to be in the same position as he's currently in Tottenham, i.e. not playing for the club. So he's not going to do that. We wouldn't. None of us would move from our home to another home to find out we're not going to play. So, of course, he's then going to say, well, okay, I'll just sit on the contract. And Dier something similar. At Spurs, we've almost made a rod for our own back. We've developed an infrastructure that's so phenomenally good. Why would a player want to leave it? Why would they want to forgo the wages they're earning, forgo the luxurious lifestyle they've got, the phenomenal facilities for which they enjoy, to go somewhere else to earn less? We wouldn't do it. So that's the challenge we got. So I think what's going to happen towards the end of this window is, unless we able to exit a few onto loan deals where a proportion of their salary is picked up, but we know that there's a maximum that we can do that. I think there are going to be negotiations between the club and players to say we need to kind of cancel contracts and let them go on a free somewhere, and they're going to walk away with a huge payoff and then go and earn elsewhere. So they're going to be doing very well financially, and it's just mismanagement of how we've got here. But we've got here because we've had that scattergun approach for 4 years on managers, on player recruitment, with no succession planning, and this is the outcome. And then bake into that the environment in which we're trying to sell into, it just makes it even more challenging.
I really don't think we're going to go down the road of pushing for loans again, because all we're doing is pushing it down another year. I think we might do that for the players that are out of contract next summer. Because at the end of their loan period, they'll just leave, which is great. But for anyone who's got a year or more left, and unfortunately people like that are Ndombele and stuff like that, then Reguilon, they're going to push for perms if they can, or because this is the thing, you negotiate a deal and get them off the wage bill, because then that gives you more money to spend on incomings now and in January or whatever. So that again is, while you're paying, you don't want to spend money to get writing off contract, but I think in the longer term and for the longer term vision of Ange and what he wants, I think I would be happy if the club took that hit this summer, because because we don't have Europe, we're not playing as many games, so we can sort of just work with a very, very lean squad.
Yeah. No, I agree. Davo in the chat has predicted 3 contracts will be cancelled. I'm going to go 5. I don't know how Davo's come up with intelligence. Well, Stuart, Craig, we're in the group chat with him, so you can probably tells you everything you need to know about Davo. But let's just take that as read for a second. Who would be the 3 contracts, Harry, who will be cancelled?
I think it'd be Dier, Lloris, and Ndombele, and I completely agree with David. I think it will be those 3. Because I can't see any of those 3, even getting a look in at Tottenham. If you think about it, Dier's not been in the matchday squad, and Ndombele's not been in the matchday squad, and neither has Lloris. Lloris at the moment is currently, from what looks of it, 3rd or 4th in line, which is mind-blowing. Think about it, 1st in goalkeeper for the majority of last season, whatever you think of that. Dier obviously not getting a look in. Conte, Mourinho have all given Dier opportunities, spoke highly of him, and just pretty much come in and said that they're basically lying, or he doesn't agree with them, and hasn't even given Dier a look. Then Ndombele, I'm surprised about. I thought a new start, new era, new system, new manager would work for him. But you hear the reports of his attitude, the lateness, if you like, and it isn't going to work anywhere. So yeah, I think it'd be those 3 contracts who are ripped up, but we need to move players on. Like you say, loans, don't fix the issue for people who've got a longer contract, 2025 beyond, Reguilon and Ndombele, etc. But it will work for people who've got a year or so left. I personally think that Dier will stay and leave on a free next year. Well, that's certainly I think what Dier will push for. I think it'll be his preference instead of packing his bags now. But also, part of me thinks that the club will rip up his contract. One's for sure. I think that Ndombele's contract will be ripped up. I think that'd be down to Ange, and obviously things you're hearing. Ange won't want someone like that around his squad, and rightly so. But players need to leave, and ripping up contracts definitely does help in the long term. And sometimes you just need to do it because, be a big club, get on with it. So we can bring players in, reduce the squad numbers. Ange can keep the size of the squad happy instead of have to entertain every individual. So yeah, I completely agree. I think it'll be 3.
I think there's a challenge there with Ndombele, and I think the challenge with Ndombele is the value of his contract. So when does his has he got another? He's been 4 years, hasn't he? It was a 6-year deal. Pardon?
It's 2025. I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So he's got 2 years left on a 200 grand a week contract. That's over 20 million quid.
Yeah.
He's got in terms of earnings. So if we cancel his contract, of course there's a negotiation, but he's not going to settle for less than 10 grand. I wouldn't. 10 million to rip it up and exit this summer. And then if you look at if you said Lloris and Dier, they're on 100 plus a week. Well, each of those, that's another 5.2 million a year. So potentially, if we rip up their 3 contracts and had to pay them out in totality, that's over 30 million quid. Negotiate it down by 50%. That's still 15 million quid's worth of cash leaving the club just to terminate. That's why I think if we can get them out on loan and get a proportion of their salaries paid, from a fiscal perspective, that's the right thing to do, because it gets them out of the club as well, and it opens up opportunities for income. And that's why I think the loan, if we can loan, and with Lloris and Dier, then they come to an end of their contract anyway. So if we can get some money in for their wages that covers at least 50%, then I think that's a sensible approach.
Sorry to jump in. Jed Spence will be another one that contract could be ripped up. I think he could be the 4th one. That wouldn't surprise me. When the news broke that Spence, that they agreed.
His rent to 2027, though. I don't think they'll do that.
That is the worry. Yeah, you don't ideally want to rip up contracts for the long term.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
ripping
the
up a
thing about
contract.
Spence as well. I think Spencer's got potential. He's still really young. It's just because there's so many players in the squad, I just think he's not going to have a shot at this particular point in time. So I think I'd like to see him go on loan in the Premier League and just sort of just get his confidence going again and all that kind of stuff.
So he was brilliant, wasn't he, at Forest? So if we're genuinely looking at this, Brennan Johnson, it could be that Spence goes as one of the loan players back to a club that he knows, that he played phenomenally well at. You wonder whether, they struggle. I'm not suggesting he's the answer to their prayers, but Dier going to Forest could be a decent acquisition for Forest. So if you had Spence and Dier going there, that could work out well for every party.
I think, the thing with Dier is he's not a stupid guy. He's very intelligent. He knows the market. He'll know what he can do. He can just sit on his contract and go on a free. So it's just whether we've got the bravery is to either say, look, if you want to stay, you can stay and see out the last year of a contract, but we're not going to register you. So you can't train, you can't do anything. That's up to you.
Yeah. It wasn't long ago. He was back in the England squad. So if he does take that route, then he's got no chance next summer, has he? Whereas if he does think, well, actually, I still back myself, and if I go to a Forest or go to a club that are looking for a centre half, and he has, a phenomenal season, he could get himself back in the reckoning.
Yeah.
I think ripping up of contracts for any club, it's got to be a last ditch thing, hasn't it? We've got to try and do everything we can to mitigate those losses, whether that's like I said, a loan deal, or whether we try and get any sort of money for them. I mean, the likes of Lloris, I really don't believe that. I've seen people speculate that we're asking for too much money for Lloris. I don't think we're asking for a penny. I just don't think there's any clubs out there that are giving him what he wants.
Yeah. Because there were rumours, Craig, about Inter, wasn't there, at the beginning of the summer?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And a number of French clubs as well, which haven't seemed to have materialised.
Yeah.
So
it's just
waiting
for for him, it's the wages and then his desire to be number one, because he still feels he's at that level.
Yeah. I'm surprised Ramble J hasn't come in, because am I right in thinking Courtois got an injury? So I
just signed, is it Arisa Balaga from Chelsea?
But he could have he got De Gea as well. He could have gone with De Gea or Lloris, because I think it's like a loan, but there's no option to buy. So it's kind of fill the gap, if you like.
The other place I thought he might go, Harry, was Bayern Munich, because aren't they still looking for another keeper?
Neuer, yes.
So I thought Lloris to Bayern Munich could have been.
They've just
have they?
Yeah.
Who did they go for?
It's a young guy from I can't remember that. I saw it literally this afternoon. It's a deal that's gone through. And that's the thing, though, isn't it? With both De Gea and Lloris, I'm really surprised they're struggling to find other teams.
They're both good keepers.
Yeah.
They've still got something to offer, haven't they?
Definitely.
It is interesting. We shall see. It definitely is going to be a frantic week and a frantic transfer deadline day. If I was to put you on the spot just on transfers, I'll start with you, Stuart. Do you expect any more incomings into Tottenham before the end of the transfer window?
I think we will. I'm gonna guess that it'll be between 1 and 3. 2. And well, 2. But I think it could be anywhere from 1 to 3. I think again, it's all just going to be, because I think the club will definitely want to give Ange. I think that's the intention. I don't think there's nothing. I don't think they're sort of holding themselves back in trying to give him what he wants. But I think the club is just so solely focused on trying to get the squad trimmed down and trying to figure out what they can and can't do on that front, which is why I think, from what I've seen it, from loads of different sort of sports journalists, that a lot of deals are primed, but they just can't push the button until we get the squad cleared down. So I think this is going to be one of those, deadline days where I think it is just going to be insane, because we haven't seen any activity on outgoings since Roden left. Nothing close. So if you've got just over a week, Yeah, just that Harry Kane. And
Not the one we wanted.
The fact that the talk of Harry Kane has just gone. It was there for about 24 hours. Everyone was like, "Oh, bye, Harry. You know, we love you." Da, 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 da. And then it was boom, gone. You know, I haven't thought about him since the day he went. So that just shows the impact that Ange is having on that front, definitely. But I think I'll go for one just to be a bit.
One in. Craig, where do you go?
I'm going 3.
3 in.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. I think we're getting another 3 players in, and I know it's probably blind optimism in support of Ange, but I just think it's going to be another 3.
Yeah.
Good. Love it. Harry, where are you going?
I wish I could share Craig's positivity, but I'm going to go with just one. I think that'll be someone like Tosin Adebayo from Fulham as a backup centre-back. Obviously, the club will get a lot of stick from fans on socials if we fail to bring in a winger or a backup striker for Richarlison, especially the striker or the replacement for Richarlison, because not many people at the moment believe he's the man, if you like. I'll be satisfied with 1 if we got players out the door. You know, for me, your rebuild is, players out the door is that, is as important as bringing players in, because we don't want to be in the situation Chelsea were last season. You've got players unhappy, the wage bill's very, very high. You're just generally in a lot of trouble. It's always hard. Look at Forest. They took them ages to adapt to a big squad, loading new signings. And it just helps the club financially, helps us in future windows, whether people say the club need it or not, and also for the players as well themselves to revive their careers, to keep it going. Like we mentioned, the likes of Skipp, the likes of Spence, to really get those careers up and running, if you like. I think that's huge. I think there'll only be 1 coming in. It'll be that backup centre back, maybe Adebayo, maybe Langley, maybe both. But I don't think there'll be anyone, unless we manage to get rid of 7 or 8 players. I don't think there'll be personally anyone else. But I think we get to deadline day, and if we haven't shifted any or many these players out the door, then I think that evening, in the last few hours, contracts, Spence, Dier, Lloris could potentially be ripped up. Like you say, it is a large ditch thing because the club doesn't want to do it financially. But yeah, I think just 1 coming in the door. But I hope Craig's right. Put it that way. Love to be proved wrong.
I think on the centre back. Sorry, Craig. I think on the centre back front, I've got a feeling it's going to be a bit of a name that we might not have heard yet or anything like that. Because the problem with a lot of the guys that we're being linked with, they're all first team centre backs. They're first starting centre backs. No one's going to come willingly at the moment, I don't think, personally. To especially Tosin. I know Tosin's absolutely not going to come to Spurs and sit on the bench when he's getting offered to go and start at Monaco.
That was the same with October as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So I absolutely think that it'll end up either being someone who's another sort of Phillips type centre back who's up and coming, got a lot of talent and all that, and who's willing to sit on the bench. And I even think that they might even utilise Phillips in the season as a backup, because his profile is absolutely incredible. So I've got a feeling they're going to try and boost him a bit. Because if you're putting Phillips in the squad ahead of people like Dier and all that kind of stuff, I mean, that just says a lot anyway in terms of how people like him are viewed in the current squad. But so from a centre back perspective, I wouldn't be surprised if it is just sort of this totally sort of unique signing of someone that none of us have not necessarily not heard of, but not someone who's not been talked about at all at this point.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, guys. Well,
Craig, how many for you? How many do you think are coming in?
I think it completely depends on outgoings, mate. I think it's linked completely to outgoings. I think as we said, I think there's a number of deals ready to go. We just got to get the players out. I don't believe the club will write off contracts as easily as some people would like them to. I'm of the view that we will. I think Lloris' contract will get ripped up if we don't find a way for him to go. I think that's a guarantee. Outside of that, I think it will be it'll be a desperate measure for us to rip any more contracts up than that. I just don't think it's financially worthwhile doing. I really don't. The only way it can happen, I think, is if after the transfer window is closed, it's all dead and we've got 6 players sitting around doing nothing. Then there's a conversation to be had.
Yeah.
But But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I just think, what I would say is I think there's a lot of unfair criticism towards the club in terms of the approach to getting players out. I think they absolutely deserve the criticism for the messed up strategic approach to the different managers and the buying of players, as I think, Craig, you said. But the club cannot be blamed because Lloris decides he doesn't want to go to Lazio or wherever, which other club it is he's turned down. That's not the club's fault. You could say, what can you say? Well, the club is the club's at fault for giving them people too many wages. Well, we criticised previously for not paying the wages. You just can't win, can you?
And let's face it, you wouldn't keep a World Cup winning goalkeeper if you didn't pay them what they're worth.
No. Yeah. And the ironic thing is with Lloris, by the way, he's put himself in this position. The club haven't done it. He's the one that openly come out and said, "I went out. I'm done." He did it. So I don't quite understand what was going through his mind because I don't know if in his mind he was thinking, there's a load of players, there's a load of clubs that want me. I've got these teams lined up and that's all failed to materialise. I'm not sure. But, I think if he hadn't come out and said that, there's a chance he would still be seen as at least one of the two keepers for this season.
Yeah.
If not number one, certainly the backup. So he's put himself in this position, not the club.
Yeah, agreed.
So, but anyway, guys, it's been a great conversation. We're back on Friday. We've got the preview show of Bournemouth. Are you on, Stuart, on that one?
I'm not sure yet. I can be if I need to.
Okay. I'm not sure who's on that one. Okay, cool. Well, we're back on Friday for that, and then we're back on Monday for the review show, and then Wednesday. And I'm sure there will be some sort of transfer deadline night.
Yeah, got to be.
Yeah, what night is transfer deadline day? What does it fall on?
It's on the 1st, isn't it? So let's have a look.
Friday, isn't it?
Thursday or Friday, yeah.
Friday. All right, so the Friday night show may turn into a transfer deadline show. Then that'll be fun. I might try and do my best Jim White or something and put a tie on or something. And cover all the breaking news. But,
only if it's got blocks of cheddar cheese on it or something, though.
Yeah, exactly. Harry, it's been a great debut from you, mate. Loads of love in the comments for your debut. So well done. Thank you for coming on. Hope you've enjoyed it.
Thanks, Harry.
No, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for everyone in the chat. Thank you to the panel tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, thank you very much for having me on.
Good, excellent. And Craig, always great to have you on and great to be with you on the show for the first time. Hope you've enjoyed it too.
Yeah, pleasure to be on, and thanks a lot, guys. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And Harry, just want to say, for a lad of your age to have the confidence to do what you're doing, absolutely phenomenal. Keep up the good work. You're an inspiration to an awful lot of people.
Oh, thank you, Craig. Very kind.
And then finally, Stuart, thanks very much.
Yeah, no worries. I'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, you will. And we need to, when you're not bigging it up in corporate, mate, we'll have to meet up for a beer in the North Stand.
Well, we can always hang out before and after the game, mate. It's fine.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean, before you go off and have your prawn sandwiches.
Yeah.
I think, guys, well, look, thanks very much. The last thing to say is, before we go, is come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Cheers.